Hello, my name is Dottie Berry, and I'm coming to you from Blaine, Washington. And I've got somebody on as a guest today who I just deeply admire and respect for the work that he's doing. And his name is Michael Withey. Michael, are you with us today?
I'm right here, Dottie.
Good to see you. And let me just say, we're here because we're interested in the micro housing communities, okay? I mean,
Right.
I've learned so much from you, Michael, just from the first interview we did. And I know that we had a lot of excitement because people were like, wow, that was so much meat, meat and potatoes too, I guess you would say. But there
Yeah.
was a lot of shared information, and so we wanted to do another hangout and sort of bring people up to speed about what's going on right now. I know that you're moving fast and furiously towards breaking ground, etc., and some other new items. But I want to share with people today we're not going to be getting into the details like we did last time on all the variations about the differences between tiny homes and micro housing and this and that. There's another interview for that, and you can check that one out. However, Michael, I would like some updates. What do you say?
Well, things never move as quickly as we wish they would, but we are certainly to the point now where I feel there's a 9 out of 10 chance now. I mean, throughout this whole process, I've kind of gauged it as, in the beginning, we have about a 50-50 chance, and as we go along, I'm like pretty positive 9 out of 10% chance. I mean 9 out of 10. I'm sure that we're going to make it. We've been able to manage to put together a lot of crews, and we have a lot of more. We have a lot more people working on the different parts of the project. We have different teams that are working on the finance part, and we have a team working on the design and development part. We've been able to go ahead and get a lot of the administrative stuff done. We're still pulling it together. We're obviously not a professional nonprofit corporation yet. We're still trying to pull it all together, and we're still 100% volunteer. So I think in the very short amount of time that we've had, we've come a long way. Uh, we're to the point now where we can put together site presentations and plans for different communities in different parts of the city. We already have. We planned one since we spoke. Um,
No, we're going
place
to cover that one in a minute. That sounds really exciting.
It is exciting. I mean, we've sort of dropped the part where we have to get the word out about it and started getting down to the brass tacks of how is this going to work as far as building it, how much it's going to cost, where's it going to be. So we did design a project at 151st and Stark. It's a project that would produce about 36 units. There is
I love
some.
that right there. Let's kind of break it up so people can get some of this in bite-sized bits, okay? Because you've got so much good information. I don't want to lose people on what's going to happen here. But what I hear you saying is that one of the values of what you already did in the work that you started was that when you started introducing a new project, you didn't necessarily have to go back and educate people already, that were already educated. You were able to move to a new point quicker. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. I think that we had to do this in stages where the first stage was just seeing that if it was even appropriate to do
Yeah.
this sort of thing. It was required of us to go and meet all these different people and talk to these different organizations and the government and to do all that, footwork just before we could even look at designing a place. So we got to that point, and now we're to the point, where we've actually designed a place, and so it's sort of the original step one, step two, step three thing
That,
that we knew
that's
that we
awesome.
had to do.
And let this just be a roadmap for other people. I mean, um, when other people in other communities start thinking, what can I do? There's going to be that pulling together of all the resources. But once you do that and you get a project going, then you have those people in place because you've already spoken to them previously. You don't have to go back and start over with the relationship. The relationship is in place, and then you
Right.
can introduce a new project to them. And this is the value of what you're doing. It's as fundamental as laying the foundation for a house. You can't put up the roof and the walls until you got the foundation down. So you all had to do this even in your process of getting the concept, concept of micro community concepts out there. Is that right?
But our conception of a micro community, obviously, as you know, there's lots of other tiny house communities out there, and they've been our model. So we're certainly not like the inventors of these tiny house communities. I've got to give the credit where it's due to the folks like Eli Spivak who've already built a tiny house community here in Portland, and so we always look to them um, for advice and just we appreciate what they've done. Um, so I don't think I answered your question.
Okay, so you're saying that the tiny house community there, help people just, even though we're not going to detail out all about tiny homes and all, but that's called tiny homes community, and yours is called micro community. What just lay a few simple distinctions between what y'all are doing.
Well, what we're doing is we're actually just renting units. We're not developing whole communities where like you have built-in like home ownership and things like that. We are actually building rental units.
Gotcha.
And even though that's our business model, we're going to be working with other organizations to help build them their own micro communities where they can do whatever they want with it, and they don't necessarily charge rent. They don't necessarily have to self-replicate. They don't have to go through our model at all. So it's hard to differentiate, our working model from others that we want to help build another micro community. Like
yeah,
the city,
you have the ones that you're actually doing, but then you have a lot of people approaching you with ideas or questions and all. And so while you might support them in some way along the way,
right.
You're not insisting that the way you have your model in the rental units has got to be their model. Is that correct?
Right, because our organization is geared towards more getting people an affordable house as it is to building a community.
Right. Yeah.
So
And there's different things for different folks. Somebody might really just like tiny homes, for example, and maybe they want to put something like that over on a piece of land, but there's other people who want to create a community. That means owning property, and it's not essentially for making sure that certain people have housing. So just for that distinction, let's say that's what you're really trying to offer here is a solution for the housing, the lack of housing, I should say, for various people. And
right, exactly.
Yeah.
For instance, we're going to work with this group, hopefully, this group called Family Promise, and it's not official, but we would love to work with this group because they're in 41 states. They would love to be able to have micro communities. I can't speak for them, but I would imagine that they would love to have micro communities in each one of the cities that they're in. There are 41 states and a lot of cities.
Wow.
So they need a lot of micro communities. So they would be specifically for families.
Yeah.
So we would go with them and say, hey, we'll help you design it, we'll help you build it, we'll help you manage it if you want us to, whatever. Just let us help in any way, even if it's just using the information that we can share with you. So we're definitely into all that. Even the city, which we've been trying to deal with for a while on the homeless issue prior to the micro community concept coming about, we could certainly work with the city and probably will to design a micro community for them, where maybe half of the units that are there are rented out to to supply money for the maintenance of the micro community, and the other half are for transitional housing, free shelter for the. So there's a lot of different ways we can look at. That's why we call it micro community concepts, because everybody has some kind of a way that they like to develop a micro community. Certainly for seniors, we've been hearing that a lot lately about groups that want seniors. I know the city and the county want it, and city county HUD wants to build just thousands and thousands of them. Little houses or anything just for the veterans alone this year.
Yeah.
this
Right.
year. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. You know, artists want their own, but ours, no, we want to be able to afford people to be able to afford a place to live. So um, we're
So
going to
let me ask you, have, in bringing people up to speed here, have you actually broken ground, or is it just getting ready to happen?
So when I talked about step one, step two, step three,
Mm-hmm.
step one is getting it accepted into your area, you know, and building a coalition of people that are willing to stand up and maybe rub someone the wrong way that might be popular in town and
Mm-hmm.
don't don't really want micro communities or whatever. So the first thing is to go ahead and build a coalition, right, and let everybody know that this is something you want to do. The
Yeah,
second thing is to, you know, actually put a plan together. You
yeah.
know, where's it going to be? What's it going to look like? How much it's going to cost? And the third thing is you got to put the money together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're at as an organization right now. We're to the point now where the only thing stopping us is the money. So
How much money do you need at this point?
breaking. So as far as breaking ground, no, we haven't broken ground yet, but we're getting close. Um, so we know that the first thing that we're going to have to do is buy a piece of land,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so the pieces of land that we've been looking at are generally about 200,000. So
You have a piece of property last time we did the first interview that you were looking at purchasing. Did that fall through, or are you looking at something else now?
that did actually, we put that plan together and we presented this site plan to the Human Rights Commission event on affordable housing. That piece at 151st and Stark had been on for sale on the market for 4 years.
Uh-huh.
And 2 days after we presented it to the public, somebody bought that piece of land.
Are you
So,
serious?
so we thought maybe we shouldn't put it out there anymore when we find a piece of land that's good to develop on.
I think
So
you're right. Maybe you better kind of keep that in the secret handshake thing with all the people who are volunteering and have to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure.
no, that's not what I mean. We did the plan, and what we did was we put it all on paper so that we had packets to hand out at this event that the Human Rights Commission in Portland was hosting. So we were there to talk about micro communities, and so we were passing out our packets. We talked to people from the press, and it got out, you know, on Facebook and other places that we had planned to site. Um, and then you know, after it became public, it wasn't our volunteers, unless you want to, you know, unless I want to blame Christopher for, you know, putting the address on the packet. I mean, we can't really. It was in the press that we wanted to buy that, and
No,
so
I'm just kidding. What I'm saying is maybe keep it on the quiet, the location until
yeah,
you
that's
do
what
it.
I said. We don't give addresses out anymore.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, listen, we've got a site that we want to show people, and first of all, I want to take them over. I'm going to do some screen share here now, because what we want to do is actually show your website and talk about that just a moment. Can you see that right now?
I can see it.
Okay, great. So I want to point out that the website, uh, it is microcommunityconcepts.org. Now I want to draw
Correct.
your attention to that. They are in the process of developing a new comprehensive website. So soon this will look a little bit different, okay? And they expect it to be finished probably by the end of the month. And you're just going to find all kinds of information on here. Michael, maybe you want to talk about this a little bit. I can click on anything you want me to click on.
Well, I think just mentioning the website is fine. Like you said, we're changing it so that it'll be a little more interactive, and we can get a little more on it, and uh, have more volunteers be able to do it more easily. So,
Okay.
um,
Well, let me
so
draw attention to two things. One is donate, okay? When we're talking about financing something, if you've got some funds and you would like to be a part, let's say you live somewhere else. I mean, this hangout will be seen anywhere throughout the world. So let's say that you're a person who lives overseas, but you grew up in Oregon or whatever the situation is, and you can't physically come in and volunteer and help, go to this donate button and help them out, because everything's needed. A couple other things. Notice right here, and I'm going to take you and show you the Facebook group, but follow them on social media, Pinterest, Twitter here, and Facebook, all right? And just make sure that you're following along, and contact us. What if you do live in the area of Portland? Well, contact them and let them know what your skill set is. I mean, if this excites you, and I think, Michael, what you were talking about a minute ago is you kind of had to start with step one, but the biggest thing that drove you all was your passion. Maybe you didn't know anything about this part and this part that you had to go out and learn, or get somebody who had a skill set in that, but you had a passion to make a difference in providing housing for people who don't have it. Is that the driving force behind here? So I want people to really contact you. Now, let's go to the Facebook group right here. All you have to do is put in here Micro Community Concepts in the search bar. This is Facebook right now. You can go to facebook.com/Micro Community Concepts, or just put it in the search bar and it'll get you there. And come over here. I want you to do a couple of things. I want you to like the page. Come over here and click on like, okay? There you go. And I took it off so that I could show you what it would be like when you liked it. I unliked it so I could go like it, okay? If you need to send them a message, here's where you can send them a message. So you're just going to kind of see a lot of information where you can go and learn more. And then the other thing I want you to speak to, Michael, is right here with this rendition. So it's up, and go ahead.
So this is the site at 151st and Stark in Portland, Oregon. We picked a site because number one, it's 4 minutes to the Max station, which is the train that leads right to downtown Portland. We have a train. Well, we have a mass public transit system in Portland that's just incredible. And one of the greatest parts about it is the Max train, and it goes all over the city. It's like $2.50 to get anywhere. So this is just a 5-minute walk. This piece of property, actually you can't see it, but to the right, my right, there's actually a house. These are 2 backyards in a high density neighborhood, zone high density R5. So we were going to divide the house off that's in the front here, sell it off. This whole piece of property, which was 0.8 acres, was for sale for $299,000. What I said was, we lost, it was sold out, but that's okay. We can still use this as a model. We can build it anywhere we want. So this piece of property would have ended up costing us $100,000 because we're going to sell the house off and divide it up. So we would have ended up, like I said, paying $100,000 for this property. We have a couple old growth trees. In fact, both trees that you see back there are old growth trees. The one by the kids' toys and little playground on the right is a humongous tree, probably a good 110-foot tall, very wide. I'd say probably a good 8-foot wide. It's a really thick trunk, great old tree. Then it had old growth hazelnut and walnut, not old growth, but hazelnut and walnut trees, peach tree, orange tree. There's a lot of grapes that we would pull back and put over a trellis in the back. So we designed the whole thing around the existing landscape. And we also decided to build a community house on each of our micro communities. You might see it's a 3-story building. It's the biggest building.
This one right here?
Yeah. So what that one is, it's a community space on the very bottom, and it'll have laundry, and it'll have a little meeting space, and of course there'll be office space and manager's unit, and at the very top there'll be 6 bedrooms for folks. That community space. How many people
can this whole project house?
Well, there's a total of, I believe, 38 bedrooms altogether. And we're sure that a lot of those beds won't be just one person in it.
Right.
So we can easily see 50 people or 60 people, 70 actually, because there are some 3-bedroom houses for families. There's 2 of them in there. There's 10 2-bedroom homes. And I'm sure even the 24 studios are going to have more than one person living. So there could possibly be 60 people
Wow.
here in this little space.
So this kind of shows you what you can do with a high density, type of situation. And so without identifying what properties you're looking at now, do you have any in the hopper? I mean, are you getting closer to that? That's the essential part that you have to have first and the funds are for. Is that correct?
Yeah, we need to have a space picked out. So what we decided to do is just go ahead and uh, find a space that's further out this time, maybe one that's less desirable,
Yeah.
one that's still on a bus line. You can still use the bus line, but might take longer to get there. So there'll be a hassle for some as far as the people that need to be downtown, all that. But so what we're gearing towards now is a larger parcel, probably a 3-acre piece of
Oh.
property that we're going to be able to build, not these high density micro communities, but one more spread out where we could have the same amount of units, but just spread out over an acre as opposed to this half acre.
So have you
So,
started a new design plan?
yeah, we'll design it specifically for that site. All of the sites will have a specific site plan and building plans. So these plans, by the way, are from Christopher Dorman.
Uh-huh.
This rendering is from Patrick Hilton. He's another volunteer. We have a design and development team now, and Christopher is leading the design and development team. He's a licensed architect here in Portland, and he's also on our board of directors. And so we put together a good design and development team. We're ready to go and plan any space in Portland, but I'm especially pushing the larger micro community next time, so that not only we can have a micro community, uh, but of individual units, not like you see here where there's a lot of studios, and not that we wouldn't have studios, but there's a lot of individually styled and sized units.
Now, is that more like, let me just come back over here, or maybe it's over on Facebook. Uh, I know you've had some. Is that more, are you talking more this style?
That's a studio.
Okay,
Yeah,
this is your studio. So you're
that's a
talking,
studio duplex right there.
okay.
And so that is one of the units that are in that plan at 151st and Stark, but we could use that model anywhere. And so if we want to put a lot of people in a small space, and that's pretty a good way to do it. That's a 160 square foot studio.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you've already got a group lined out who builds these. Is that correct?
Who builds these?
Yeah. Hmm.
We build them.
You actually build these as well?
Our group will, yeah.
Okay, but you've
Well,
got somebody's design who built that. Is that right?
we design that, and we'll
Okay.
build it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
we
great.
actually do we actually do design our own stuff. That's why I'm saying, we have teams now that can take care of these issues. I mean, that's a big issue right there. If you're going to build a micro community, you're going to need to have architects and designers and all sorts of people, landscapers and plant biologists that are willing to volunteer their time to get it done. And we do. So, yeah, we're ready to do it. So as far as the 3-acre parcel that I'm looking at now, and
Uh-huh.
it's certainly not solid, it's not like we're going to go put any money down on it, but what I'd like to do now is take what we're talking about and take it a step further.
Okay.
Um, we would like to also maybe do an RV park on this site, not just a micro community, but also an RV site
Uh-huh.
where we would let people specifically with like tiny houses on wheels
Uh-huh.
that you see being built a lot,
Yes.
to have space to rent. Um, and probably even people with just RVs, like an RV park as well.
So are
Um,
you thinking of a combination, or would that be two separate things?
well, those would be two separate things, because people that want to live there in their houses on wheels, or tiny houses on wheels, might want to have more of a neighborhood setting where they're there. You know, they would put skirting around it and actually live there or whatever. But I think an RV park, a temporary park, might be a little different. But they would all have hookups,
Yeah.
sewer and electricity hookups.
I
So
want
we
to draw people's attention to this right here on the web, on the Facebook page. If people are interested in seeing some of the parameters around the rent that you're looking at and the size and so forth in this particular project that you're working on for Portland, and think of in terms of your own community and how this might be implemented and what steps you might have to take to sort of get the ball rolling. How long has it taken you all to get to this point?
I think I started micro community concepts. I started working on the whole tiny house issue March of last year. So it's been almost a year, about 10 months actually.
But wow, y'all, what progress you've made in that short period of time! Because when you're, I say sometimes when you're trying to bring together volunteers and everybody has a lot of regular work to do, sometimes that can be like herding cats, isn't it?
I'll tell you, being disorganized is it's being disorganized in an essence where people you know need to be there to be able to get a job done.
Yeah.
I don't have the skills to do it, and so if you don't have somebody to get this certain particular thing done, like the grant writing part of this,
Right.
we'll get or we'll get, that's what I call them, visitors. We'll get volunteers that'll come in and just be able to handle just a very short time, because it's just, as far as they're concerned, not organized. They might think that, well, the first thing you do is write grants. The first thing you do is just file your articles of incorporation with the IRS and pay the $800 and get your 501c3 tax. But nothing works that way. What I found most of all is nothing is easy, and nothing works as fast as you think it should. Even if things are going exactly as planned, it's still going to take a long time to get things done.
Well, it goes back to everybody has their own way of looking at a situation. In their mind, it needs to be this way, and just depending on what kind of personality they have,
right,
they're going to see it in a different way. The people who have the passion, like yourself, you're going to be very action-oriented. It's like, hey, we want this. We don't know exactly how it's going to work, but we're moving forward, and that's going to blow the mind of somebody who likes it very systematized.
Oh, it blow the mind and very often piss them off. I've had people just say, you're going to fail. If you keep on this system of not knowing, step 1, 2, 3 through Z, and then A, this is it, but it takes 16 subparagraphs that you need to have written and transcribed. It's like, oh my goodness, if you complicate things like this, if you try to be too systematic about things, you're not going to be creative and you're not going to get it done, because you're going to give up. So I totally believe that when you're going to do something like this, you're going to have to not listen to the people that want you to do it in the way that they think that it needs to be done. For instance, the first thing you need to do is write a business plan, get a list of people that will live there, talk to banks, go to the city and see what they can do and see if they got land. People have advice. A lot of people have advice, but they probably don't see the whole picture and can't see how that works.
They don't have your passion, Michael. I mean, you can get away with doing a lot of things not exactly right if you have a passion for it and you stick with something, and you know that no matter what it takes, you're going to achieve this, because you see it in your mind's eye. You see it happening. You see yourself walking onto that property one day and everybody coming up and just saying, thank you for what you've done to get us a place to live. And so you take that passion. I think of a big example that people may not even realize. Let's take Wikipedia. Wikipedia is one of the most amazing things that's ever been done, because it's by people who volunteer their time to go in there and put the information in. And that volunteer project overcame Microsoft, who had put money into a project, and I'm sure they followed all the systems. What they didn't have was the passion of a group of volunteers like Wikipedia had. And finally, they shut it down.
Right.
Because Wikipedia had quote one.
Right.
So it's one of those amazing examples of how passion and a dedicated group of volunteers can absolutely create something miraculous, you know. So I really commend you for that passion. It's amazing what you all are doing, I think. What else
Thank
can you share with us today about this project, where you see it going, and what you need from people?
you. Basically right now we're to the point where we're just going to need to start doing fundraising because that really is the only thing that's stopping us from doing it. So um, until our new website's up and until you can really interact, like we were speaking about earlier before
Yeah,
in the pre-show, is we need to connect all of our different working groups through the Google communities and the different sites and have a really good interactive website where if you're passionate about a certain aspect of what we're doing, then you can easily go there, see what we're doing, and join up and have a lot of interaction. So I'm really looking forward to the new website, and I'm looking forward to how it's all going to interact together.
uh-huh.
I'm really looking forward to the point where we can actually go ahead and let our finance team start doing their grant writing and doing the fundraising events, at least here in Portland, hopefully, in other cities as well to help, bring this about. So I'm just really excited about that. I'm excited also about things that are going on with the tiny house community having nothing to do with the micro communities.
Yeah, tell us
Um,
about that.
well, you know, I should probably tell you that we do plan on eventually making some money through this nonprofit corporation. Um, I wouldn't say make money, but bring in some income
Yeah.
by
It'll be a
moving some.
nonprofit, but you're going to bring in the income. That makes sense. I mean,
Yes,
that's how nonprofits stay alive, you know, is by
right.
kind of bringing those things together. People donate some funds, but you're creating things through that. But at the end of the day, the funds are going out to people, you know.
Right. No, we've already got a fundraising system built into micro communities because all of our houses are income earners.
Yeah.
But we're talking about besides that, we'd like to start building accessory dwelling units in people's yards,
Okay.
getting people employed, and that profit can go to micro community concepts so that we can build more micro communities. So we're talking about extra income for the nonprofit, and we'll do that through ADUs. So even though micro communities are not ADUs and they're not even considered anything like that because it's just different, and same as tiny houses on wheels are different than ADUs, and so we have three separate things like we talked about last time. We're still concerned about ADUs, we're still concerned about tiny houses on wheels because it is a good way, irregardless of whether we're going to do it and make money for the nonprofit. And even besides that, we got into this because we believe there should be affordable housing everywhere,
Yes.
and one of the good ways to do that is to build accessory tiny houses
Yeah.
in people's yards.
Uh-huh.
And it's also a really good idea to let people build a tiny house on wheels um, and park it in someone's driveway or in someone's backyard. We all think that that should be legal.
Yeah.
Um,
And what are
so,
you all doing towards trying to get laws changed? How is that aspect going?
well, they've been really good about the city has been really good about ADUs. They've waived system development fees. They've
Now, for people who don't know what that is, you want to define that for them? The term,
system development fees.
yeah. See,
Well, that's what the city would charge you to build an ADU in your yard.
yeah.
They want to make money on everything. So I mean, they don't really do anything for it. They feel that since you're going to tap into the city sewer, then you're going to pay a lot of money. So
Uh-huh.
system development fees can be pretty expensive, $10,000, $15,000.
Uh-huh.
So they're being waived. There are still fees like building fees, inspection fees, and things like that. You have to pay to build an ADU. Right now, it's 1,500. Could go upwards if you're building a bigger one. Then you have to have a bunch of separate inspections, and you have to have your new prints and you have to do a lot of things for the first time. So we're really into accessory dwelling units. We think that every yard should have one. Whether it's a small house built in your backyard, or you turn your garage into another apartment, or you turn your basement into an apartment. Um, but mainly we like tiny houses, to build tiny houses in people's yards. So we also think that since it's illegal to have a tiny house on wheels, we should work on making that legal as well. So we just had a meeting with the mayor 3 weeks ago, the leaders of the tiny house movement in Portland, Eli Spivak from Orange Plot, and Joan and Dee from Pad Tiny Houses, and um,
Well,
Shelter Wise was there, and Lena
yeah.
Menard was there. There was a few of us there at the mayor's office, and he sat and bought us lunch, and we spoke about tiny houses on wheels for about an hour and a half. Um, and we're still working with the Portland Development Commission, not the Portland Development Commission, but zoning and the different agencies with the city. We got our connections down. We think we're going to be able to legalize tiny houses on wheels in Portland soon. So to answer your question, um, things are really moving along for the tiny house movement, not just micro communities, but the whole tiny house movement. I know that we've been able to sort of affect that maybe a little bit by really
Elevating the conversation, I think, is what
elevating
you've
the
done.
conversation, and so we're really happy about that. We're doing a lot of events lately, it seems like, because people are so interested in it. The same group of people
Yeah.
at Tiny Houses in Eli, and Darren from Shelter Wise, and Lena from Niche. So we're doing events like the Hollywood Theater, where Tiny, the documentary about the tiny house that was built, uh, and so we'll Human Rights Commission events and Architects Without Borders, and just Airbnb the other day.
Yeah, I
We're
think, Michael,
constantly
all of this has to be considered because, um, the what it is costing us, the government, in terms of having to take care of people who do not have homes or cannot afford bigger homes, that costs them more than it would if they relax some of these rulings to really make this possible. So we've got to look at, I mean, we just have to, in our communities, we've got to be getting on board with having meetings and going to our government, to ask, to request to be heard. Because there has to be solutions, and there are. The thing that's so hard for me, Michael, is there are solutions to our issues. It's just whether or not people are willing to allow the solutions to happen, and that's what's just, I don't know, it's just bothersome sometimes that people aren't willing to look at things a different way just because years ago, people had 2,500 square foot homes and then they had 3,500. And I'm not, denying, it's not about denying anybody the right to have a bigger home, but it's about denying people the right to have a small home.
I'm definitely, I agree with everything you just said, and I feel very fortunate to have been in a position to help facilitate, I think, some of that changing here in Portland, and I'll certainly, and I know I can speak for all of my organization when we say we'll continue our effort to legalize tiny houses in every fashion, in a nice, in a very nice organized way where we know that it's not going to be abused and there's not going to be shanties built in people's backyards. Nobody would like to see a well-regulated industry like the industry itself right now. The leaders in the tiny house movement right now are the ones that we should be looking to set the standards, uh,
Right.
and we have. And so that's what's nice about when we go to the governments and try to get them to relax things, because we go there with a plan already there,
Right.
where is acceptable to everybody, because um, we're probably more stringent about codes and regulations than the city would be,
Yeah.
because we have a stake in it.
Yeah.
People are actually living in these houses and they don't want other people coming and screwing it up. So it's kind of nice to be
The
able to
thing
work.
is, Michael, by doing it this way, with the approach you're talking about, and kind of having a plan when you go in to talk, you can allay their fears, because it's the fears usually that cause people to resist change. It's what they don't know. Well, what if this is? What if that? So if you take a solid plan to the table and say, this is how we're going to address this and this and this and this, then you can get an opening for people to hear your conversation.
Which is exactly why we're a shared information nonprofit. Our we don't charge
Yeah.
to go, and we don't charge for information. We have open source everything. Our blueprints for our everything is open, and you can use it. Our pictures, everything.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is to uh, bring about a sort of social change, whereas it doesn't need to be about profit. You know what I mean? And maybe then it'll spread. We're hoping it spreads because first of all it's free, and of course it makes sense. But I would like to make a point that. And I think I've mentioned this before, Dottie, but we, we've made a final decision that we are not ever going to take any government money.
Uh-huh.
We're never going to take any government land,
Yeah.
city, county, feds, whoever. We're just not going to take any money from the government.
And
Um,
what can people say against that? Because oftentimes the thing becomes, well, look what they're getting, or whatever. So as you begin to make people responsible in even small ways, in tiny ways, so to coin here since we're talking tiny, but when people do that, they have something at stake, Michael, that makes them feel good about what's being accomplished. So you bring these volunteers together and you collaborate with another group, just like you said, you started with the micro community, concepts idea, and now you're cross collaborating with the tiny homes, and that's got you thinking in another way. That kind of collaboration is good for all of us, and we need to do more of that.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
And it's great. I'm sure we are. It takes a while, but we've moved along pretty exponentially, and
Yeah.
just in the last year, as far as tiny houses and all this is concerned. Actually, we've moved along pretty well. So I'm really excited, and I have no doubt it's going to work out. I really think that we need to be thinking about having them in Bellingham as well. Um,
Definitely. I told you my goal is, towards the end of the spring sometime to bring you up or over, however you want to look at it, up over and into the Bellingham, Blaine area, because I think there's a whole lot of interest. And we
right,
had, an initial meeting, a lot of people there, and then the winter hits and it's kind of crazy.
right.
And I know you've got a lot of responsibilities over there, but we're going to get you over here because you have so much insight and so much information to share. And I think when you start to do that, that people grab onto your passion. You know what I'm saying? Um, and,
Yeah,
and, and then they don't feel like, wow, we've got to do this all by myself. Because I know
right,
I have the passion for it, and I know I can't do it by myself. I have a
right,
lot of other responsibilities too in my business, and creating income so that I can do some things like this in the future and
right.
be helpful. But we all have a lot of skills and talents, so just know that we're going to be getting you over here. And does that sound like a good idea?
Well, it's a beautiful part of the country. How could I say no, not to coming up to? It's beautiful up there. It's the sound.
Yeah, and giving you hospitality. I mean, think about it. Here I am, a person that lives here with Southern hospitality. That can't be a bad thing, huh?
I didn't want to mention that because
Don't worry, you won't start talking like me just because you come over here, okay? Well,
yep. No, Dottie, I don't think you understand. I grew up in a whole family household of people that were from Arkansas, so
yeah.
somehow I managed not to get that. I think I worked hard. In fact, I know for a fact, I know this for a fact. Growing up through school, they weaned me from talking like that. They
Oh,
did. They did. I grew up north, and I swear I had this southern accent, and I remember it specifically started in like kindergarten, and I would pronounce something, like we do, and they would correct me, and they just kept doing it until the point where all the southern was gone out
well,
of my.
I'll tell you what, when you come over in the spring, I'll give you some lessons and it'll just come right back to you. It'll be like riding a bicycle.
No, yeah, I don't think it. No, as soon as I pick up a Budweiser and walk outside, I get my southern accent back. It's miraculous.
Oh, me.
Whenever I go to an event or it's a party, I just all of a sudden start speaking Southern again.
There you go. Well, I'll look forward to that because I don't get to talk with many people around here that sound like me.
It's kind of weird, but my eyes change color a little bit too, so maybe it's.
Oh, there you go. Well, listen, Michael, it's always a pleasure to have you, and I love your passion. I love what you're doing. I love your commitment. More of us can gain from what you all are doing, and I look forward to having you and giving you some great Southern hospitality in the Pacific Northwest up near the Canadian border. How about that?
Absolutely, Dot. I think I'd certainly look forward to it, and I'll keep you up to date on all the new stuff going on, and if something really cool breaks, like we actually buy a piece of land, I'll let you know like right away.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We'll get on and hang out and let everybody know, and we'll celebrate, okay?
We'll park our RVs up there for a bit while we're building it. We'll just have like every weekend we'll have a little building party.
Hey, that sounds great, Michael. Thanks for being on here today. I appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next hangout, okay?
All right, Dottie.
All right, bye for now.
Bye.